when the Galactic Council gave humanity 7 days to surrender their dreams of the stars, they made one critical mistake. They underestimated a species that had never learned how to quit. The massive holographic projection flickered to life above every major city on Earth simultaneously. Citizens stopped in the streets, drivers pulled over, and within moments, 7 billion human eyes were staring up at the same impossible sight. A collection of alien beings seated in what appeared to be a grand cosmic courtroom. At the center sat Zarthik the Adjudicator, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's ethereal light into prismatic rainbows. To his left, the tentacled mass of Counselor Vretian pulsed with bioluminescent patterns of authority. On the right, the mechanical frame of Judge Unit 77 hummed with computational precision. Inhabitants of the third planet of Sol system, Zarthik's voice resonated through universal translators, reaching every human ear in perfect clarity. We are the Galactic Council, governing body of this galaxy's civilized species. You will listen. In the White House Situation Room, President Sarah Chen leaned forward, her knuckles white against the mahogany table. Around her, the Joint Chiefs, the Secretary of Defense, and the world's most brilliant minds watched in stunned silence. For 3 rotations of your star, we have observed your species with growing concern, the Adjudicator continued. You wage war against your own kind. You pollute your cradle world. You develop weapons of mass destruction with reckless abandon. Most concerning of all, you have begun to venture beyond your solar system carrying these destructive tendencies. With you, the image shifted, showing scenes of human conflict, battlefields, nuclear tests, environmental destruction. But then something unexpected appeared, images of human kindness. Doctors treating patients, firefighters running into burning buildings, volunteers feeding the homeless. Counselor Vretian's tentacles writhed as it spoke. Your species presents a contradiction that disturbs the cosmic order. You are capable of both profound cruelty and inexplicable compassion. This unpredictability makes you dangerous to galactic stability. Judge Unit 77's mechanical voice added with cold precision. Analysis indicates 73.6% probability of human expansion resulting in galactic conflict within 500 standard years. This exceeds acceptable risk parameters. The transmission showed a star map, with human colonies marked in angry red dots spreading outward from Earth like an infection. Therefore, Zarthik declared, the Galactic Council issues this ultimatum. Humanity will cease all space exploration beyond your home system. You will surrender all FTL technology. You will submit to Council oversight of your technological development. You have 7 of your days to comply, or face consequences. The implications hung heavy in the air. Secretary of Defense Martinez was the first to break the stunned silence. Are they threatening to destroy us? The meaning is clear. Unit 77 responded, somehow hearing the whispered question across the vast distance. Non-compliance will result in humanity's classification as a galactic threat. Such threats are neutralized through any means necessary. As the hologram flickered and died, leaving Earth in an eerie silence, something unexpected began to happen. In the streets below, instead of panic, instead of fear, a different sound began to emerge from the crowds. Laughter. It started in Tokyo, where a businessman in a perfectly pressed suit looked up at the empty sky and began to chuckle. It spread to London, where a group of university students burst into full-blown guffaws. In New York, construction workers slapped their knees and wheezed with mirth. Within hours, social media exploded with memes, jokes, and reactions that would have baffled any other species in the galaxy. #Galactic Council says, what began trending worldwide. Late-night comedians prepared their monologues. Saturday Night Live called an emergency writers' meeting. In emergency sessions around the globe, world leaders grappled with humanity's response. The UN General Assembly had never seen such unanimous attendance, with every nation's representative present via hologram or in person. President Chen addressed the assembly with words that would echo through history. Fellow humans, we stand at a crossroads. An alien civilization has looked at our species, at our wars, our mistakes, our growing pains and declared us unworthy of the stars. They've given us an ultimatum: surrender our dreams of exploration, or face annihilation. She paused, looking out at the faces of representatives from nearly 200 nations, many of which had been enemies just hours before. They clearly don't know us very well. The laughter that erupted wasn't cruel or dismissive, it was the laughter of a species that had crawled out of caves, survived ice ages, built civilizations, and reached for the stars, despite every obstacle the universe had thrown at them. Russian. President Volkov stood next. Comrades, Americans, humans, all we've spent centuries fighting each other over scraps of dirt on this one small planet. But these aliens want to trap us here forever. I say, we give them something we've never given them before: a united humanity. Prime Minister Singh of India nodded gravely. Our ancestors looked at oceans and called them impossible barriers. We built ships. They looked at mountains and called them insurmountable. We built tunnels. They looked at the sky and called it unreachable. We built rockets. Now aliens look at us and call us unworthy of the galaxy. She smiled. They're about to learn why that's a mistake. Meanwhile, in research facilities around the world, humanity's brightest minds were already at work. Dr. Elena Vasquez at CERN spoke rapidly into her headset. If they can project holograms to every point on Earth simultaneously, their technology is impressive, but not incomprehensible. The quantum entanglement pattern suggests they're operating on principles we've theorized, but haven't implemented. At SpaceX headquarters, teams of engineers pulled all-nighters, reviewing schematics. At the International Space Station, astronauts ran diagnostics on every system, preparing for possibilities they'd never imagined. But perhaps the most telling response came from the most unexpected source: schools around the world. Teachers found their lesson plans abandoned as students peppered them with questions about space, physics, and what it meant to be human. 8-year-old Marcus Johnson in Detroit raised his hand. Mrs. Peterson, why do the aliens think we're dangerous? His teacher knelt down to his level. Marcus, I think they're scared of something they see in us. Something that makes us different from every other species they've met. What's that? Mrs. Peterson looked out the window at the Detroit skyline, rebuilt after decades of decline, a testament to human resilience. We don't know how to quit. Marcus. When someone tells us we can't do something, we don't just prove them wrong, we do it better than they ever imagined possible. The 7-day countdown became a galvanizing force unlike anything in human history. The arbitrary divisions that had defined human civilization for millennia, race, nationality, religion, politics, suddenly seemed petty in the face of a species-wide challenge. In Silicon Valley, programmers worked alongside former competitors to develop new communication protocols. In Geneva, CERN scientists shared data freely with researchers in Beijing, Moscow, and Mumbai. Military contractors found themselves collaborating with peace organizations, united by a common goal: proving that humanity deserved its place among the stars. Admiral Rebecca Torres, newly appointed commander of the hastily formed United Earth Defense Initiative, addressed her staff in what used to be a NATO facility. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 6 days to demonstrate why humanity should be free to explore the galaxy. Our objective isn't to win a war, it's to win an argument. Her chief science advisor, Dr. James Wright, pulled up a holographic display. We've analyzed their transmission technology, their ship designs visible in the background of their broadcast, even their biological and technological characteristics. They're advanced. Yes, but they're also predictable. Explain. Every species on their council appears to represent a different solution to the problem of civilization. The Zarthak achieved unity through crystalline collective consciousness. The Vretian through biological harmony. Unit 77's people through technological perfection. They've each found their one path to peace and stuck to it. Admiral Torres nodded slowly. And they can't understand a species that refuses to choose just one path. Exactly. They see our contradictions as flaws rather than strengths. They don't realize that our chaos is also our creativity, our conflict is also our growth, our independence is also our innovation. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens around the world were proving this point in extraordinary ways. The Global Unity Project emerged spontaneously not from any government initiative, but from millions of individual humans deciding to work together. Artists created collaborative works spanning continents. Musicians composed symphonies with movements written by different composers who had never met. Engineers shared designs for technologies that no single nation could have developed alone. Children drew pictures of humans and aliens working together and posted them online. Their naive optimism touched something deep in the human psyche, the part that had always reached for impossible dreams and somehow made them reality. In Detroit, Marcus Johnson's class started a pen pal project with students in Lagos, Tokyo, and Stockholm. Their assignment: write letters to the Alien Council explaining what it meant to be human. Marcus wrote, "Dear aliens, my teacher says you think we're dangerous because we fight a lot. But fighting isn't the scary part about humans. The scary part is that we never give up, ever, even when we should, especially when we should. My dad says that's why we have submarines and airplanes and rockets and the internet. Because someone told us we couldn't have them. Love, Marcus. P.S. Thanks for making my whole species friends with each other. We should have done that a long time ago." On the seventh day, as the deadline approached, something unprecedented happened. Earth went silent. Not the silence of surrender, but the silence of a held breath. 7 billion humans paused in their daily routines and looked up at the sky. In Times Square, the usual cacophony of traffic and conversation faded to a whisper. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous tribes who had never seen television knew something momentous was about to occur. Even the International Space Station fell quiet as its crew waited. President Chen stood in the Rose Garden, but she wasn't speaking to the camera, she was speaking to the sky. To beings who might be watching from ships hidden beyond human detection. Members of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice carried by every broadcast system on Earth and beyond. You gave us 7 days to surrender our dreams, our ambitions, our fundamental nature as explorers and dreamers. We've spent those 7 days not preparing for surrender, but remembering why we deserve the stars. Above major cities, the human response began. Not weapons, not shields, but something the Galactic Council had never seen before: pure, unfiltered human creativity made manifest. Holographic displays reverse-engineered from the Council's own technology in just 1 week lit up the sky. But instead of showing human weapons or defenses, they showed humanity's story. The images began with early humans leaving Africa, crossing impossible distances on foot. They showed the first boats venturing beyond sight of land, the first planes lifting off from Kitty Hawk, the first steps on the moon, but they also showed the other side of humanity: field hospitals in war zones, international rescue efforts during disasters, scientists sharing life-saving discoveries freely with former enemies. They showed human art, music, literature, the things that made survival worthwhile. You judge us for our conflicts, President Chen continued, but you misunderstand what you're seeing. We don't fight because we're evil, we fight because we care so deeply about our beliefs, our loved ones, our futures, that we're willing to die for them. Yes, this sometimes leads to tragedy, but it also leads to triumph. The holographic display shifted, showing the impossible unity that had emerged. In just 7 days, former enemies working side by side, children from different continents drawing pictures of friendship, artists collaborating across every boundary that had ever divided humanity. You want predictability. You want species that find one path to peace and follow it forever. But humanity offers something different: growth, change, the constant possibility of becoming better than we were yesterday. In the cosmic courtroom, the Galactic Council watched in stunned silence. Zarthik as crystalline form flickered with uncertainty. This wasn't how civilizations typically responded to ultimatums. They usually either submitted immediately or prepared for war. Counselor Vrishan's tentacles writhe in confusion. They show us their weaknesses as if they were strengths. They admit to conflict, to mistakes, to imperfection. How is this a defense? Judge, Unit 77's mechanical voice carried a note of something like admiration. Analysis suggests they view their flaws not as limitations to overcome, but as features to be improved. This is unprecedented. President Chen wasn't finished. You're afraid we'll bring chaos to your ordered galaxy. You're right, we will. The chaos of new ideas, new solutions, new possibilities. We'll question assumptions that haven't been questioned for millennia. We'll try approaches that seem impossible to more sensible species. The holographic display now showed human innovations, technologies that shouldn't have worked but did, scientific breakthroughs that came from asking questions no one else had thought to ask, art that moved souls across species barriers. But most importantly, President Chen concluded, will prove that a galaxy doesn't have to choose between order and progress. We'll show you that chaos and growth and change aren't bugs in the system of civilization, they're features. And, if you try to stop us, you'll discover something that every tyrant in human history has learned the hard way. Telling humans we can't do something is the fastest way to ensure we'll do it anyway. The cosmic courtroom of the Galactic Council had never experienced anything like this. For eons, they had maintained order through a simple system: evaluate emerging species, categorize them, and either welcome them into the established order, or eliminate them as threats. It was clean, efficient, and predictable. Humanity was none of those things. Zarthik's crystalline form pulsed with colors that hadn't appeared in millennia, shades that indicated deep confusion and something else entirely: curiosity. In 47,000 years of council governance, no species has responded to an ultimatum with education. The human transmission continued, but now it was being broadcast from a source that made the council's sensors ring with alarm. Deep space, from the edge of the solar system. Somehow, in 7 days, humanity had not only reverse-engineered council technology, but deployed it beyond their home system. Dr. Elena Vasquez's voice crackled across the void from the hastily modified probe Defiant, launched just 72 hours earlier on a fusion drive that shouldn't have been possible with human technology. Honored council members, I'm transmitting from coordinates you can verify outside our solar system. We achieved this not despite our chaotic nature, but because of it. Unit 77's mechanical voice carried disbelief. Impossible. Our scans indicated they possess no faster-than-light capability. Even with our technology, achieving interstellar deployment in 72 hours requires thinking outside the box. Dr. Vasquez interrupted with audible amusement. Something humans excel at. We didn't build a faster-than-light drive, we built something better. We built a human solution. The technical data streamed across council displays, showing an impossible hybrid of technologies that shouldn't have worked together: fusion drives operating at theoretical maximums, solar sails deployed in configurations that violated conventional physics, and most impossibly, a gravity assist maneuver that had somehow used the Council's own scout ships' slingshot points. They turned our surveillance vessels into inadvertent accomplices, Counselor Vrishan observed, tentacles writhing with what in humans would have been laughter. This is either brilliant or insane. With humans, came another voice from Earth. This time Admiral Torres. It's usually both, but the real surprise was yet to come. The probe Defiant wasn't alone. In the span of a week, humanity had launched 17 different interstellar missions using 17 completely different approaches. Some were desperate gambles with one-way tickets. Others were engineering marvels that redefined possible. One was literally a message in a bottle-of-time capsule launched on a trajectory that would reach the galactic core in 10,000 years, carrying the complete works of human art, literature, and scientific knowledge. We're not just exploring space. President Chen's voice continued from Earth. We're ensuring that even if you destroy our world, our ideas survive. Our chaos, our creativity, our refusal to accept limitations, it's already spreading beyond your ability to contain it. Zarthik's form shifted through colors that indicated deep thought. They have weaponized hope itself. The council chamber fell silent as they contemplated the implications. Every probe, every desperate human mission venturing into the void, carried the same message. Humanity existed, humanity dreamed, and humanity would not be contained. But then something unprecedented occurred. Unit 77, the purely logical artificial intelligence that had served as the Council's most reliable voice of reason for 15,000 years, did something it had never done before. It expressed an opinion rather than an analysis. Council members, Unit 77 announced, I formally request permission to amend my assessment of humanity's threat level. Granted, Zarthik replied automatically. Humanity represents zero threat to galactic stability. Humanity represents a threat to galactic stagnation. For 47,000 years, we have maintained peace by eliminating chaos. We have achieved order by preventing change. We have created a galaxy-wide civilization that is stable, predictable, and slowly dying. The chamber erupted in confused harmonics and bioluminescent protests, but Unit 77 continued. When did any council species last make a genuine scientific breakthrough? When did we last create art that moved souls across species barriers? When did we last ask a question that hadn't been asked before? The silence that followed was answer enough. The Galactic Council had never faced a decision like this. For the first time in their recorded history, they were being forced to question not just a single species, but their entire philosophy of governance. Councillor Vrishan's bioluminescent pattern shifted to deep contemplation. The humans present us with a paradox wrapped in an impossibility. They admit to being flawed, chaotic, and unpredictable, then use these very traits to accomplish things we deemed impossible. Evidence continued streaming in from human deep space missions. The probe closest to Council space had begun transmitting, something that made their xenobiologists recalibrate their instruments. Music. Not just any music, but a collaborative composition featuring instruments from every human culture, performed by musicians who had never met, unified only by their shared humanity and their defiance of alien ultimatums. But it was the lyrics that truly shook the Council. Translated into every known galactic language, the song carried a simple message. We are the ones who sailed beyond horizons others called the edge of the world. We are the ones who flew when God said the sky belonged to birds alone. We are the ones who reached for stars when wise men said they were just lights to guide us home. We are humanity, and we have only just begun to dream. Zarthik's crystalline form resonated with harmonics that hadn't been heard in the chamber for millennia, the sound of a collective consciousness experiencing something new. Doubt about long-held certainties. They force us to confront an uncomfortable truth, the adjudicator admitted. Our galaxy is peaceful, but is it alive? We have eliminated conflict, but have we also eliminated growth? The debate that followed would be studied by xenanthropologists for generations. For the first time in Council history, species that had coexisted in perfect harmony for thousands of years began to disagree not violently, but creatively, each bringing their unique perspectives to bear on humanity's challenge to their worldview. The Zarthik collective mind began to experience something unprecedented, individual thoughts breaking free from the crystalline matrix, ideas that were unique, rather than shared. The Vrishan found their biological harmony disrupted by new patterns of bioluminescence, emotions they had thought eliminated from their species eons ago. Even Unit 77 began processing data in ways that prioritized questions over answers. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity waited, but they didn't wait passively. The Global Unity Project had evolved into something remarkable, a species-wide renaissance. Art, science, music, and literature flourished as humans suddenly saw themselves through alien eyes and realized how extraordinary their ordinary existence truly was. Children who had grown up thinking space exploration was just history now designed impossible rockets in their notebooks. Elderly people who had lived through humanity's first steps on the moon found themselves dreaming of colonies among distant stars. Artists created works that captured not just human experience, but human potential. In classrooms around the world, teachers found their students asking new questions. If aliens think we're too chaotic for space, what would happen if we brought order to chaos instead of eliminating it? What if our conflicts make us stronger rather than weaker? What if being imperfect is perfect for exploring an imperfect universe? Marcus Johnson, the 8-year-old from Detroit, whose letter had somehow found its way into the Council's databases through humanity's rapidly expanding communication networks, wrote a follow-up message that would become humanity's unofficial motto. Dear aliens, I've been thinking about what you said about us being dangerous. My mom says dangerous can mean two things: dangerous like a tornado that breaks everything, or dangerous like a seed that breaks concrete to become a tree. Humans aren't tornado dangerous. We're seed dangerous. We break things to make room for something better. That's why you should let us keep the stars. Because we'll plant gardens where you only see empty space. Love. Marcus. P.S. My whole class wants to be xenobiologists now, which I couldn't even spell last week. The Galactic Council's deliberations stretched far beyond their intended timeline. What was supposed to be a simple enforcement action had become the most significant philosophical debate in galactic history. Species that had remained silent for centuries suddenly found their voices. Technologies that had stagnated for millennia began evolving as the Council itself began to change. When Zarthik finally called for the final session, the chamber itself looked different. The rigid geometric perfection had been modified with additions that served no functional purpose, but somehow made the space more alive. The Vretian had contributed bioluminescent art that shifted and flowed with the emotions of the proceedings. Unit 77 had calculated decorative elements based on mathematical beauty rather than pure efficiency. Most remarkably, the chamber now included a section designated for observers and inspiration, filled with artifacts that told the story of species throughout the galaxy before they had achieved their current peaceful stasis. Weapons that had been tools of war became sculptures representing growth through conflict. Failed experiments became monuments to the courage of attempting the impossible. Humanity of Sol 3. Zarthik began, but his voice carried harmonics that hadn't existed in the crystalline collective consciousness before, notes of individual thought within the greater unity. You have presented us with a challenge that goes far beyond your species' fate. You have forced us to examine not just your worthiness to join galactic civilization, but the nature of that civilization itself. The human response came not from Earth's leaders this time, but from an unexpected source. The 17 deep space missions had linked their communications, creating a human voice that literally surrounded the council chamber. Humanity was speaking from all directions, no longer contained to their home system. We never asked to be judged worthy, came the collective human response. We asked to be allowed to prove ourselves through our actions rather than our potential for chaos. Councillor Vretian's tentacles created patterns of light that would have been impossible under the old biological harmony, and in doing so, you have proven something we had forgotten. Growth requires risk, discovery requires the possibility of failure, progress requires the courage to be imperfect. Unit 77's mechanical voice had developed something unprecedented for an artificial intelligence: emotional inflection. Analysis indicates that humanity's value lies not in their current state, but in their trajectory. They are not who they will become, and they never stopped becoming. The moment stretched across space and time, with billions of humans holding their breath and entire civilizations reconsidering fundamental assumptions about existence. Finally, Zarthik spoke the words that would echo through galactic history. The Galactic Council hereby reverses its ultimatum. Humanity will not be restricted to their home system. However, This decision comes with conditions, not limitations imposed upon humanity, but challenges we issue to ourselves. The chamber filled with harmonics of confusion as species tried to process this unprecedented turn of events. Humanity has reminded us that a galaxy at peace is not necessarily a galaxy at its best. Therefore, the Council establishes the Department of Constructive Chaos, with humanity as our first partners in rediscovering what it means to grow rather than simply exist. The announcement sent shockwaves through thousands of civilizations that had grown comfortable in their perfected states. This partnership comes with mutual responsibilities, Unit 77 added. Humanity will share their gift for creative disruption, while Council species will share the wisdom of their achieved stability. Together, we will attempt something no galactic civilization has ever tried: controlled evolution, 6 months after the ultimatum that should have ended humanity's dreams. Of the stars, the galaxy looked very different indeed. The formation of the Department of Constructive Chaos had triggered the most significant shift in galactic civilization since the Council's founding. Human diplomatic vessels, still held together by impossible engineering and sheer stubborn will, docked at stations that hadn't seen new visitors in centuries. But they came not as conquerors or even equals, they came as catalysts, bringing with them the most dangerous thing in the universe: questions that hadn't been asked before. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the observation deck of the newly commissioned starship Curiosity, humanity's first official interstellar vessel, built with a combination of human ingenuity and Council technology that shouldn't have been possible, but somehow worked perfectly. Captain's log. She spoke into the recording device, a habit borrowed from human fiction that had somehow become standard practice throughout the newly cooperative fleet. Day 187 of the Galactic Exchange Program. Today, we visit the Zarthic homeworld, where something unprecedented is happening. Individuals Zarthic are beginning to experience private thoughts within their collective consciousness. Through the viewport, she could see the crystal and structures of Zarthic Prime, but they were different now. Where once perfect geometric harmony had reigned, new growths appeared, additions that served no collective purpose, but reflected individual creativity emerging within the hive mind. They're scared, Dr. Vasquez continued, but they're also excited in a way they haven't been for millennia. Yesterday, a young Zarthic named Velmer asked me a question that no member of their species has ever asked: what would happen if I disagreed with the collective? The fact that the question could even form in their consciousness represents a fundamental change in their species' evolution. The Curiosity wasn't alone in its mission. 17 human ships had become 70 as other species began contributing to what was being called the Great Experiment. The Vretian had modified biological research vessels to explore not just physical evolution, but emotional growth. Unit 77's people had created mobile research platforms that ask not just how but why and what if. Back on Earth, Marcus Johnson, now 9 years old, and the unofficial spokesman for Earth's children, stood before the United Nations General Assembly as the youngest person ever to address the body. The aliens thought we were too chaotic for space, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber and beyond 2 billion of humans watching worldwide. But chaos isn't the opposite of order. Chaos is what order grows out of. They forgot that, and they needed us to remind them. His words were being translated and transmitted across the galaxy in real time, part of the new cultural exchange protocol that ensured every species could learn from humanity's gift for turning profound truths into simple statements. Now they're remembering how to grow again, and we're learning how to grow without destroying everything. My teacher says that's called symbiosis, which is a really big word that means helping each other become better. The applause that followed wasn't just from the human audience. Across the galaxy, species that hadn't expressed approval or disapproval in centuries found themselves responding emotionally to the words of a human child who had never left his home planet, but somehow understood galactic civilization better than those who had governed it for millennia. President Chen, now serving as Earth's first galactic liaison, smiled as she took the podium. 6 months ago, the galaxy tried to put humanity in a box. Instead, we convinced the galaxy to come out of its own box. The Department of Constructive Chaos has received applications from 17 different species who want to learn what humans call thinking outside the box. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The species that had been deemed too chaotic for galactic civilization had become its teachers. But perhaps the most remarkable development, President Chen continued, is what's happening right here on Earth. Our children are learning xenobiology and interstellar diplomacy alongside reading and arithmetic. Our artists are collaborating with beings whose concept of beauty evolved on worlds we've never seen. Our scientists are working on problems that didn't exist 6 months ago. She gestured to the viewing screen, which showed images from across the galaxy. Zarthic individuals creating art that reflected personal rather than collective vision. Vretian developing new bioluminescent patterns that expressed previously unknown emotions. Artificial intelligences like Unit 77 writing poetry that explored the boundary between logic and beauty. We're not just exploring space anymore, President Chen concluded. We're exploring what it means to be alive in a universe full of infinite possibilities. 10 years after the ultimatum that should have ended humanity's journey to the stars. Ambassador Marcus Johnson, now 18 years old and the galaxy's youngest diplomatic envoy, stood on the observation deck of the starship New Detroit, gazing out at the impossible sight before him. The Nexus station hung in space like a crystalline flower, its structure combining the architectural principles of dozens of species in ways that should have been aesthetically chaotic, but instead created something breathtakingly beautiful. It was the first structure in galactic history designed not by any single species, but by the collaborative chaos that humanity had brought to the ordered universe. Personal log, stardate 2387.3. Marcus spoke to his recorder, using the dating system that had emerged naturally from human galactic cooperation. 10 years ago, I was 8 years old and wrote a letter to aliens who thought humans were too dangerous for space. Today, I'm returning from the Outer Rim, where humans' Arctic teams have discovered 17 new forms of crystal-based life that exist in states of organized chaos, life forms that couldn't have been understood by either species alone. Through the viewport, he could see ships from across the galaxy docking at Nexus Station. Sleek Vretian biovessels that grew rather than being built. Geometric Zarthic craft that now featured individual modifications reflecting their pilots. Emerging personalities, elegant artificial intelligence vessels that had learned to value beauty alongside efficiency. And scattered among them, the wonderfully chaotic human ships that still looked like they'd been assembled in someone's garage, because many of them had been. The galaxy is louder now, Marcus continued. Messier, more unpredictable, and according to every measurement we have, more alive than it's been in 50,000 years. The statistics were remarkable. Technological advancement had accelerated by 847% since the formation of the Department of Constructive Chaos. Artistic output had increased by measures that couldn't even be calculated. How do you quantify the first original music in millennia? Or the value of poetry written by artificial intelligences exploring the meaning of existence? Most importantly, birth rates among council species had increased for the first time in recorded history. It seemed that learning to grow again had reminded ancient civilizations why life was worth creating and nurturing. But the best part, Marcus said, allowing himself a smile that would have made his 8-year-old self proud, is that we're still just getting started. Behind him, the door to the observation deck opened, admitting a group that would have been impossible to imagine a decade earlier. His diplomatic team, consisting of a young Zarthic individual named Velmer, whose private thoughts had helped birth individual consciousness in the collective mind. A Vretian called Harmony and Discord, whose bioluminescent patterns created new emotions. And an artificial intelligence designated Curiosity Prime, who had chosen their own name and spent their processing time writing haikus about the beauty of imperfection. Marcus, Velmer said, their crystalline form flickering with colors that indicated excitement mixed with nervousness, emotions that hadn't existed in their species before human contact. "The Council has approved our proposal." Marcus turned from the viewport, his heart racing with possibilities. The deep space exploration initiative, all of it, harmony and discord confirmed, their tentacles creating light patterns that roughly translated to controlled enthusiastic chaos. 50 ships, 20 species, and a mandate to explore not just unknown space, but unknown possibilities. Curiosity Prime, added with mechanical precision that somehow conveyed warmth. Destination, the galactic core, where our sensors have detected anomalies that existing physics cannot explain. Estimated mission duration, however long it takes to find answers to questions we haven't learned to ask yet. Marcus looked back out at the galaxy spread before them, billions of stars, trillions of worlds, infinite possibilities waiting to be discovered by beings who had finally learned that chaos and order weren't enemies, but dance partners in the grand ballet of existence. "You know what this means?" he asked his impossible team of friends from across the galaxy. They looked at him expectantly. "We're about to prove my mom right about something she told me when I was 8 years old. Humans don't just explore space, we plant gardens where others see empty darkness. And now we're teaching the galaxy how to garden." As the New Detroit prepared to depart Nexus Station for the unknown reaches of galactic space, carrying with it the dreams and hopes of dozens of species, Marcus thought back to that day 10 years ago when the Galactic Council had ordered humanity to surrender their dreams of the stars. Humanity had laughed then, not from cruelty or dismissal, but from the sheer impossibility of asking a species to stop being what they were. They were the descendants of beings who had looked at oceans and built boats, who had looked at skies and built wings, who had looked at the moon and built rockets. They were humanity, and they had only just begun to dream. The galaxy would never be the same again. As the stars wheeled slowly overhead and the New Detroit engaged its hybrid human-alien drive system, a beautiful impossibility that worked through sheer stubborn optimism, Marcus Johnson smiled and opened a new log entry. "This is Ambassador Marcus Johnson of the Terran Diplomatic Corps, aboard the starship New Detroit, beginning the first joint species deep space exploration mission in galactic history. Our destination is unknown. Our mission is impossible. Our chances of success are incalculable." He paused, watching distant suns grow brighter as they accelerated toward adventures that would reshape the very meaning of civilization. In other words, he concluded with the laugh that had become humanity's signature across the galaxy, "We're exactly where we belong." Behind them, Nexus Station grew smaller against the cosmic backdrop, but its light continued to shine, a beacon not of order imposed, but of chaos embraced and transformed into something beautiful. It was humanity's first and greatest gift to the galaxy, proof that the universe was big enough for every dream, wild enough for every possibility, and patient enough for every species to find their own unique way to reach for the stars. The Galactic Council had ordered humanity to surrender. Humanity had taught the galaxy to dream instead. And in the endless expanse of space, filled with infinite worlds and unlimited possibilities, that made all the difference.